From the heart of Central Florida, you are listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. And welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, David Garnoski. So glad to be with you guys once again here in Central Florida. Coast to coast on Florida, we join you across the I-4 corridor from Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg, Sarasota, all the way to Orlando and the Space Coast. This is where the heart of the Sunshine State is, and we're happy to join you once again for our conversation. We are challenging the sacred cows of groupthink, and there is no better time than now to do that. As things are rapidly changing in front of us, it's our principles that we have to stay steadfast to. The principles that we believe on this program are about personhood, not collectivism. That means if you want to have community, if you want to have togetherness, you've got to respect the human person. And stay away from this false idea that, yeah, we can temporarily curtail your right to your life and your freedom and your property and your business and your ability to speak and associate at worship services and so forth. We'll curtail it for a time, and then maybe we'll let you free. That's not the way we want to go. The way that leads us to that is the mindset of fear. And unfortunately, so much of the media, they're just so sold out on the idea of fear being the key for everything. It's just not going to work, though, folks. We have to rely on courage, on confidence, and on the principle of the personhood revolution that has been going on for over 2,000 years and is founded on the idea of nonviolence and creativity. A Neighbor's Choice is dedicated to that, and we're happy to join you as always. We have a lot going on in the news cycle, and we're going to try to unpack that. Later today on the program, we're going to have Dr. Kevin Gutzman, who is a constitutional scholar and a historian, someone who's well-versed in economics as well, a professor, who will give us some of the things we need to think about as we navigate these economic, unprecedented times that we're in, where it's almost as if as they say, the cure may be worse than the disease. This is a debate that's going to continue to rage on, and we need to be able to have a conversation about it without having these kind of emotional, knee-jerk blame games that the media always want us dragged into. They're always going to get us to, I've heard so many of them saying, Trump is pushing a terrible thing by pushing hydroxychloroquine. I saw some of them saying he needs to be arrested for doing this, even though although I don't know about the efficacy of hydroxychloroquine myself, many doctors, clinics in New Jersey and New York are finding it to be, in conjunction with azithromycin, the antibiotic, an effective treatment for those with COVID-19. That's what they are saying, the doctors on the front lines of this epidemic as they try to battle it. And there's still a lot of questions. I heard another doctor in the ICU in New York say he's never seen anything like this kind of disease. It doesn't have, in his perspective, the same effects of typical pneumonia, but rather he said it looks more like something like a high altitude sickness, the patients that he's getting, where they're just losing oxygen. So he's suggested that perhaps some of the people, this is this doctor's opinion, this ICU from New York, he said that perhaps this ventilator sometimes may be exacerbating people's conditions rather than helping. So this is what happens, though, when governments try to do top-down planning and they get one idea in mind. It's this, and then they all load the economy and tear it all apart to push something, right? And that was outdated information. And so that may be what's happening here. Then there's the other side that's going on, which is different epidemiologists, people who study epidemics, study biomedicine and things like that, are saying, well, perhaps the herd immunity was the best way to do it instead of dragging it out so that more and more people, if you flatten the curve, and again, I'm not taking a side either way on this particular issue, whether you should flatten the curve or let it go through as quickly. But I've heard one esteemed epidemiologist from Rockefeller University. He's retired. He was the chair over there with worked in studying epidemics and pandemics, and he said that there's some debate about whether using these measures to flatten the curve may actually end up hurting in a lethal way more elderly, because it'll allow this thing to prolong itself with waves that would be not as dramatic if we would allow herd immunity to take effect with the younger among us that don't seem to be experiencing symptoms, the vast, vast, vast majority. So again, a lot of questions, a lot of mysteries, a lot of unknown things as people navigate this. But I believe, and I know you do too, that if we stick to what's right and wrong and don't bend on that, as the quote goes, in matters of fashion, go like the water, go like the river water. But when it comes to principles and moral, foundational ethics, stand firm like a rock. And that's what A Neighbor's Choice is focused on. We believe that, and we think that if we don't stand like a rock on our principles, we'll be in a lot worse shape. Not just in an abstract way, like, oh, some kind of intangible, esoteric enlightenment theory about rights. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the practical benefits of preserving our freedom and our property and our right to conduct business and to assemble and to get fresh air. I mean, that's another thing I just get so bugged about, is that in all of this conversation that we're having nationally, there's no emphasis that you see from the so-called government authorities, that word, as if they're some kind of sacred authority because they won popularity contests and votings, that somehow they don't say anything about the foundations of nutrition. They're not telling you to stop eating the Cheetos and the stuff. Why? Maybe because big corn and big wheat and big soy would give them phone calls saying, hey, I thought we were going to help you with your reelection campaign. Or I thought we were going to do this or that. And so these cronies that they're serving first and foremost in big industries, they preclude these authority figures, these would-be authority figures, from being very credible about a lot of stuff. I'm not saying they don't have good intentions. Many of them do. But I'm saying they have a lot of vested interests that have their tentacles fully wrapped around them, a lot more than we do, the people here in our neighborhood. And so when that's the case, their perspectives, politicians, even when they have good intentions, will be bent by the noise and the chatter and the bureaucrats that make up so much of the swamp and the chatter and the groupthink that gets entrenched in that city. And so what I'm concerned about is they don't even talk about nutrition. So they're just telling you, everybody stay in the house. Some have suggested, I think it was Dr. Birx, I don't know if she was misquoted or what, but there was the headline on Drudge and other on other websites saying, she said, stay home, stay away from the grocery store even. So what are you going to do? You can't eat? Well, you got to get out. You got to get some sunshine. Hey, this is the Sunshine State. We know about sunshine. Get your fresh air, get your sunshine. Don't get all up on people, but get your fresh air, get your sunshine, and keep your confidence up, because this is something that we can pass through a lot faster if we get our mindsets in the right order and keep our freedoms strong. Don't cower. We'll continue live on A Neighbor's Choice. More to come. Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, David Gronowski, broadcasting coast to coast across Florida. We are coming to you. We're happy to be with you. And this is a breath of fresh air, this program, because we're not going to get into shouting matches about which party should win and whose little team red or team blue is going to win. That's old, man. You've been hearing that for decades, right? Don't you just want to have a conversation where people could just say, hey, this is what I believe, this is what I value, and this is what I'm finding to be helpful as it pertains not just to politics and the news cycle. That's helpful when it's applicable, right? But also as it relates to things closer to home, like how our health is and what do we do with nutrition? What do we do with our personal finances when there's economic uncertainty? What do we do with preserving our right to our businesses and how we should conduct our time in these moments when we have about avoiding these fragile top-down systems that are prone to create a lot of error. Remember, the WHO, World Health Organization, has gotten so much wrong in all of this, right? And I'm not a guy that likes to just try to quarantine guilt onto the backs of some group. That's what everybody else in politics typically wants to do. And we're all prone to it, so I'm not immune. But I do think it's clear that when you have a WHO, a top-down solution for the whole world, one size fits all, there's a lot of opportunity for them to be captured by the foxes, right? Let me put it this way. The foxes are guarding the hen houses. When you have so many powerful interests at the world stage, just think of it, for example, how much special interests go into your local community or county as it pertains to the decisions to build a road, which contractor is going to get the contract, which business is going to get the new road put their way. There's a lot of politics. There's a lot of passion. There's a lot of effort and conniving and trickery and things that happen on the city and local level every day, right? We know that. We always just shrug and say, oh, well, it's just politics, just a bunch of corrupt stuff. Well, we got to vote for our guys to maybe try harder next. Vote harder, right? Well, imagine if you've got global organizations like a World Health Organization. Now you've got millions of people. You've got trillions of dollars at stake in the decisions you make as a bureaucracy. You don't have any accountability. You're like basically a cheap imitation of a government in some sense. It becomes very easy for groups, special interests, different countries to game and rig the mouthpieces of groups like the WHO to bend them in the direction that is misinformation. And that's what it seems like maybe the Chinese government did with the WHO. We don't know. And some of the other groups that are saying, oh, yeah, they said for years, oh, don't wear masks and, oh, no worries. Don't have to shut down trade and travel with China. Don't do that. They were saying in January, end of January, I believe they were still saying, don't worry about it's not transmissible human to human, this virus back then. So they were giving us a lot of false information. Now, maybe they were just dumb, but why would we allow one global monopoly? Why would we be so naive to think, well, we know how much crookedness and cheating and sneaking that we find at a county or city level as it pertains to who gets the lush contract, no bid contracts at a local level for a road. If that brings out such awfulness, how much more so could we expect a global group that's supposed to be in charge of trillions of dollars and billions of people's lives? That, to me, sounds like a very foolish idea to create that kind of reliance on some group like that, WHO. Who put those guys in charge? That's what I want to know. So we cannot rely on the experts. We have to take care of ourselves. When they say stay in the house, don't stay in the house all day. You got to get fresh air. That's essential. So we should be getting fresh air all the time, as much as we possibly can, as we're physically capable, regardless of whether we're in a flu season or epidemic or whatever. And we should be getting plenty of sunshine. We should be trying to get as much as possible 8 hours of sleep. And we need to practice good sleep hygiene by keeping blue lights and things like that away from us. Those are things you have control over, right? And then there's a lot of other things we can do in this time. We can tell the truth. We can use our lives to be role models for positivity, for empowerment, for creativity, not fear and discouragement. There's a lot of media outlets that use their anchors and use their narrative voice to create that other frequency. Fear, surrender, submission. Those are not good feelings. Those don't solve things. Nothing great in history happened because people got fearful and submissive. Okay? Things happen in history that are great when people have the fresh air of freedom breathing through their lungs. They've got courage in their hearts. They believe in themselves and they believe in their neighbors. And they exercise their freedom and their brilliant ideas that sometimes don't fit into the confines of these status quo establishment thinking groups. And they change the world. Think about the Wright brothers. They create planes. People didn't even know that was possible just a few years before they showed it could be done. Think about the people who made cars. I mean, I've said this example before, but I'll say it again. Imagine if the federal government had monopolized, like they do, things like food and drug and things like that, FDA and CDC, Center for Disease. Imagine if they had monopolized transportation to the point that they had to pick by committee and bureaucratic decree what we could do for transportation. Well, they'd have a bunch of horseshoe makers in charge of the bureaucracy who would review the submission from a young Henry Ford and so on for the automobile and say, excuse me, this is not approved. This does not follow bureaucratic protocol number 56424 about how to have horseshoes. You don't even have horseshoes. You don't even have a carriage unit. You don't even have the right wheel size. You are invalidated, sir. No cars allowed on the market. Where will we still be at this point, right? That's why it's important to not decide your life and not to surrender to some bureaucracies, because there is a tendency in human beings to want to fall in line to some kind of authority voice that speaks with authority and uses fancy graphics and fancy attire to make us just say, okay, I don't know what's going on. I can't sleep. I don't know what to do. What's going to happen? Just tell me what to do. Where's my welfare check? Just tell me. I'll take universal basic income and sit in the house for the rest of my life. It has nothing to do with health. Whether there's any virus or not, that's happening. Whether we're years from now and there's no virus or whatever, staying at home has nothing to do with health unless you're sick and then you need to rest, right? But even then, you still need to get fresh air. During the Spanish flu, they had people out in open, when they were sick, they had them in outdoor hospitals where they could get fresh air and sunshine, and that was very effective when that Spanish flu in 1917 and 18 came through. So that's one of the things that people need to be remembering of, is that your skin in the game is the thing that's going to help drive you to success. Bureaucrats don't have skin in the game. They bungled everything with WHO, World Health Organization. They bungled the CDC test kits. CDC couldn't even get test kits that worked. Surgeons General was saying, don't wear a mask, when everybody should have worn masks, because in South Korea and places like that where they've been wearing masks, the rate hasn't been as rapid, it seems. Closing borders. The media, experts, and all those guys were deriding and laughing at and mocking and attacking the idea to close the borders with China. If we had done that 4 or 5 weeks earlier, we wouldn't even have the political context probably to warrant the public consent or whatever you want to call it for all these mandatory stay-at-home orders across this country. So don't trust the experts in faraway cities. Oftentimes, they know less than you do. Use your common sense. Go with your intuition. Don't make rash decisions, of course, but trust your intuition and trust those who have skin in the game, those who actually have to experience risk and loss if they make bad choices. That's the world of the market. That's the world of freedom. And that's where we're going to find our answers. We'll continue with Dr. Kevin Gutzman up next, constitutional scholar, best-selling author. We'll be right back in just a moment.
Attention homeowners. Do you have a house that's in need of serious repairs? Do you have tenants that never seem to make their monthly payments? How about code violations, past due taxes, or maintenance costs you just can't afford? Then call my friends right now at Quick Cash Offer. They specialize in buying any home, no matter how ugly the situation. Turn that problem property into cash right now. It's just that simple. One call and you can get rid of that home headache forever. They buy the ugliest houses with instant closings, instant cash, and huge savings. Plus, there are no realtor fees, no listing fees, and no repair costs. Just cash in your hands for that painful property. They're buying a few more houses in your neighborhood this month. So take advantage of this cash offer and call Quick Cash Offer now.
800-775-4514.
Yes.
800.
I told Nick when he hears that Comrex making that digital, it makes it, it's we're having some digital noise. You know what I mean? Where your voice sounds like a robot.
Oh, it's doing that on the radio?
Yeah, it's doing that. So I told him when it gets really, really bad to let you know in a long break and you can reconnect. It's not bad enough to do it now, but, I told him that.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornoski, your host. We're live. You can catch us in Tampa Bay on 1040 a.m. Make sure you preset your radio dial from 4 to 6 every day, Monday through Friday, to 1040 a.m. so you cannot miss a single episode as we do a lot of exclusive information, exclusive interviews with some of the top guests around the country and the world making news. We don't just have pundits, we have people who also have skin in the game who are doing great things. We had Jeff Eben on, who's created a $100 ventilator that compared to the traditional ventilator costs $50,000 a unit. This one costs $100. He's looking to get 1 million of them developed, and it's very applicable for the needs of the folks with COVID-19 related lung issues. So that's the kind of, we have makers on the show. You get inspired on the show. You get motivated. You get that pep in the step, knowing that people are not sitting around idly and just waiting for some authority figure to tell them to stand up, sit down, shut up, move, do left. We're not doing that. That's America's never going to be that way. Never is America. As long as we keep the message of freedom in our hearts and our minds, as long as we keep out of this false song of central planning out of our life, we're not going to succumb to that, because that would not be anything to do with America and what we're about. That's not our tradition. So joining me now is Dr. Kevin Gutzman. He's an American constitutional scholar and historian, and he's a professor of history at Western Connecticut State University. Dr. Gutzman, how you doing?
Happy to be here. How are you?
I'm doing well. And I wanted to have you on because I saw you posting, some comments on social media. And you were talking about the folly of these politicians who think that the economy, you could just turn it on like a button. They don't know anything. They've never created a job. All they've done is run for popularity contests. Like they're basically people who, never figured out that running as homecoming queen and king is not really the only thing you do in life if you want to do something. These guys do this stuff for a living, and yet they think they're the geniuses that know how to handle the economy. They can turn a button on and everybody will just be right back to square one and, print a few trillion and they'll be okay. What do you think of that?
Well, as you say, I think it's highly ill-informed. People are being displaced at this moment. Businesses are closing down, some of them permanently. The average Joe seems to think that an independent businessman is by definition wealthy, where most people who own small businesses are 1 or 2 pay cycles away from closing them up. So having most of the economy shut down for weeks or months is just a prescription for throwing many people out of work and having them be displaced for a very long time. I think it's sad that the politicians keep saying, well, we need to turn the economy back on. We're going to open it up again, as if nothing will have happened. And of course, while people are unemployed, they're unable to pay their bills. They're unable to buy the things they need. They're unable to support their families. And this leads to all kinds of other problems too. So I think it's a sad notion, really, that we're going to turn the economy off and then turn it back on.
You said in your post that an economy isn't static. What does that mean?
Well, an economy is not just a unit that you can kind of pick up off the shelf and turn on. It's composed, in the American case, you have more than 300 million people, and more than half of them are active participants in the economy, and they have relationships with each of them with numerous other people. If you pull one person out of that web, it affects all the people around them, everyone from whom they're buying things, everyone from to whom they're selling things, everyone they employ, everyone who employs them, all the people they're in communication with, even socially, are going to be affected by the fact that they're out of work. It's just, it's endlessly complicated. It's not as simple as the politicians want to make it. So you hear people saying, well, if we just borrow X amount of money and hand people a $1,200 a week check for a while, when the virus passes, we'll be able to say to them, all right, now go back to your regular jobs. And this is not possible. Plus, it also assumes that printing money doesn't have any negative effects on the economy. But of course, printing money does have negative effects on the economy on an ongoing basis. So the whole thing is a debacle. That's the bottom line. I don't know what exactly to prescribe instead of the macroeconomic program that politicians have undertaken, except that I think where you decide you're going to spend more, you should find areas in which you could spend less, which they, of course, never do. But what bothers me is the implication of this, we're going to turn the economy back on talk being, don't worry, when we get to the end of it, nothing will have changed. And this is just false. It's propaganda.
Right. Yeah. And we've seen this in history, that when you print money out of thin air, it doesn't actually make the economy more prosperous. It just makes us crazed for a time, and it over hypes up consumption without having savings in the economy to back up that spending, right?
Well, yes. Besides that, you get malinvestment. In other words, when there are more dollars in circulation, people put more of them into things that they otherwise wouldn't have invested in. So in other words, economy's scarce, the society's scarce resources are being put into endeavors that don't merit being invested in, that are only being invested in because of this temporary artificial stimulus that the government is giving to investment and consumption. It's really, whatever area of economic life you think of is negatively affected by this. That's the problem. It drives me batty, because the implication is, if only the government would do this more often, we'd be even better off. Why not have a $2 trillion borrow and spend orgy every week?
Right.
If it doesn't have any negative effects, why not just do it all the time? And of course, the answer is, well, it does have negative effects. It has myriad negative effects. And alas, we're all going to feel them.
And you can see a lot of the central authoritarian types on left and right really licking their chops at the idea, ooh, what's the next goodie bag? When's the next, I think we've got the case now for single payer healthcare. I saw Steve Bannon, who, is supposed to be representative of a lot of the Trump style, thinking in that DC circle. And they're saying, Well, what's the real argument against universal health care? Not that they're for it, but they don't really make an argument against it. And so what are you supposed to do if that's the range of debate,
Well, how are they going to make an argument against it? Their understanding is if you want more military spending, you just have the Fed, create some more electronic digits and put that into the military. Or if you want to hand people $1,200 a week for doing nothing, tens of millions of people for doing nothing, you just do it. So obviously, if you want to turn around and say, well, how about if we just hand people tens of billions of dollars of money for going to the doctor? What would be the argument against that? If the assumption is there are no negative side effects to artificial stimulus or deficit-based spending, then you can't really object to any particular program. That's why when they do this, they don't bother to cut anything. They don't have offsetting reductions in spending. We don't find things that are obviously wasteful and say, well, we need to put money into this for the moment. How about if we cut that? No, there's never any talk of it anymore. This is actually a major change in our political culture in my adult cognizance of politics. It used to be that if somebody wanted to spend more money on the military or on food stamps or on public education or whatever, he'd say, and we could have an offset on this, or we can reduce the rate of growth in that category, or they can do something to make up for the fact that now they're going to be spending more without taxing more. But now they don't do that. They just depreciate they just reduce the value of our dollar and pretend that it's not having any deleterious consequences. So, alas, I think the bottom line problem is economics is a complicated science, and most people have no understanding of it. So, since Republican government is one in which everybody gets the kind of government that the majority of voters deserve, we end up with this problem. Mm-hmm. Nobody can say, let's not do this. It'll harm posterity or it'll harm us 5 years from now, because if he does, he won't be reelected.
Right. And I think that goes back to the kind of the core that we find ourselves in, is that we are a nation of role models that, in terms of the people with power and cultural influence and so forth, that they want to mitigate risk rather than pursue excellence, right? And they're so obsessed with mitigating the risk of them looking bad that they will never allow for any kind of, pursuit of excellence that would actually, cleanse this economy of bad investments. And for example, the airlines that were buying their stock buybacks, right, of $45 billion, now they're going to get a $50 billion handout. They should have had a rainy day fund, or at least they should have been allowed to use it,
Yeah, and the thing is, there's another problem. People seem to have the idea that if a corporation goes bankrupt, for example, if an air transport corporation went out of business, suddenly there wouldn't be any more air transportation. And that's not what would happen. What would happen would be that the assets of the corporation would be sold off, the industry would end up being reorganized, and you would still have more or less the same routes that people always had because they've been paying for them, Right. So essentially the politicians have come to have the idea that any big corporation must be prevented from going out of business merely because it's insolvent.
Yeah.
Insolvency, of course, is an indication that the thing is being poorly managed, and maybe it ought to be sold off part by part to other better run corporations. We don't have this happen anymore. It really ought to. And actually, a famous economist, Schumpeter, said, in capitalism, you have quote unquote creative destruction. You have businesses in competition. One of them doesn't compete as well as the others. It goes out of business. Its profitable parts are sold off to the other ones and continue to function. And as through time, this means that you have a better run industry selling its wares at lower prices, and everyone's better off. except the guy who did a bad job managing the one that went out of business. He's not better off, but we don't want him to be better off. We want him to get a signal, hey, you need to do a better job managing your business. The way that we do this now, it doesn't really matter if you run your corporation poorly, because you can go to the government and say, guess what? We have a downturn. It's not my fault, and I didn't plan for any negative contingencies, so I think the taxpayers should fund me. Or what really tends to happen is we should print money and let posterity pay for it. So I find this highly irksome on behalf of posterity.
And then those same mega corporations write the regulatory laws that choke out the small businesses that don't get the handouts that they got. So it's really a rigged game. And all along, the Republicans are always calling this markets. They're always calling this capitalism, which is fraudulent. It's not capitalism. And that's why a whole generation of people, young folks, don't even accept capitalism anymore, because they see what they get. It's crony corporatism that they get, but they think it's capitalism. So it's just a semantic trick. Thanks, Dr. Gutzman, for joining us. Always a pleasure to hear from Kevin Gutzman, and check out all your work. What's your new book the latest book that you got out?
It's Thomas Jefferson, Revolutionary. You can find it at my website, KevinGutzman, GUTZMAN.com.
Thomas Jefferson, Revolutionary. It sounds like a timely book. Dr. Gutzman, thanks again for joining us.
You're welcome.
A Neighbor's Choice will continue live. I'm David Gornosky. Don't go anywhere.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like to grow up without a mother or father? Or worse, having your father drop you off at a foster care facility and leave you there without coming back? Hi, my name is Cindy Tilley, and that's exactly what happened to me. I grew up in a foster care setting. I struggled every day to survive the difficult situations that I was not prepared for. And that is why I founded Forgotten Angels. Many children, boys and girls, are placed in a foster care facility here in Florida. Kids who have aged out need direction, support, encouragement in order to become productive citizens. That is exactly what we do at Forgotten Angels with our beautiful, tranquil facility in Valrico, Florida. We prepare these children to get an education and eventually get employed. Will you help? Please contact me at ForgottenAngelsFlorida.org. That's ForgottenAngelsFlorida.org.
So for those on our live stream, we're taking a quick commercial break.
The Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. It all starts here, March 13th through the 15th. The NTT IndyCar Series
remember,
opener races on the beautiful streets and waterfront of downtown St. Petersburg. Tickets start as low as $25. Get your tickets at gpstpete.com. Enjoy 3 days of nonstop action and family fun as the NTT IndyCar Series headlines 13 different races ready to take the green flag. It's the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, March 13th through the 15th. Visit gpstpete.com.
Live stream. Just look up David Gornosky,
the Florida Association
or you can also go on our YouTube.
Have you ever given your social security number to someone without knowing why they need it? Has your Medicare card
we have
been
a lot
stolen?
Of
if you think
fantastic
you've been a
guests,
victim of
and we go
Medicare
through
fraud,
all the topics. You know the old days when you would get a general variety show where you get
empower seniors
your
to
science,
Medicare fraud,
you get your physics,
you've been a victim.
You learn a little bit about nuclear fusion, you learn a little bit about music and art. We have classical composers on our show. It's really a Mr. Rogers Neighborhood for adults experience. You get a little taste of everything in life that people like. And that's the way programs used to be before everybody got so stuck on kind of imitating the whole tit-for-tat political discourse, kind of degraded the dialogue. You can't have the full picture of life. This program tries to provide a little bit of everything that matters to people, the things that I find enjoyable, the things that my friends and neighbors find enjoyable, and that I think are very timely and provocative, things that inspire us to do great
My
things in our
part-time
lives.
service in the Army National Guard makes it possible for me to be more for the community I call home.
Also
I'm
our
a better neighbor
podcast.
because my service has taught me how important it is to be a team player.
Because
My
our
training helps
podcast
me in my
has a,
classes when I give
is a
attention to
great,
detail to the
way
task
to
at hand.
stay in
My
touch
service
with
in the Army National Guard allows me to keep my country
what we're doing
safe from threats.
when it
Learn more
comes
about
to,
how you too
the,
can live and serve part-time by visiting
Things Hidden
nationalguard.com.
Sponsored by the Florida Army
is our
National Guard,
podcast that
aired by
gets
the Florida
into
Association
deeper
of
dive of
Broadcasters
history
and this
and
station.
social science, anthropology. Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornosky, your neighbor. So glad to be with you once again. As always, Mondays through Fridays, 4 to 6 p.m. We're live on 1040 a.m. in Tampa, also 540 a.m. in Orlando in Central Florida, Space Coast, everywhere. You're going to want to stay informed with A Neighbor's Choice. So that's one of the things that I think is a lesson that we need to always keep in mind, which is that today's leaders that we have for so long just kind of sat at the wheel and allowed to kind of accumulate power in front of us because we're busy trying to keep up with the Joneses. We're busy trying to do a good job for our families, right? You have to work 2 jobs and multiple, incomes in the household to keep up with the cost of living oftentimes and the transformation of wealth because of these globalist trade deals, managed trade deals that are rigged. They're not real free markets. They're rigged markets. And the cost of starting a business, the regulations is so high that people end up having to have multiple jobs in the family. And then they get away from their time that they want to spend with their family. So we get distracted. And along the way, guess what happens? We accumulate a lot of people that are really, really, really excited about safe mediocrity rather than risky excellence. Now, risk is not something to play with in a haphazard way. You don't want to be ridiculous. You don't want to play Russian roulette. You don't want to be flippant. You do want to have wisdom. You do want to have some measure of mitigation of risk in life. But fundamentally, the bureaucrats and the politicians that won their little popularity contest in D.C., their primary focus, because they don't own the assets that they're managing on our behalf, which is our money and our agencies and our lives and our liberties, they don't reap the loss if they make a mistake. They are fundamentally concerned with mitigating risk, not pursuing excellence and success. And so that's why their whole orientation is always around kind of an overbearing, over-nanny, motherly, smothering, motherly type archetype, where they want to just anything we can do to protect it. But their protection ends up smothering us. It ends up hurting us. It ends up actually getting more of us sick from diseases because no one wants to be the politician that says, well, I opened up the economy because I didn't want to destroy the economy. So I stopped destroying it, right? And then there's a report that a media person does that somebody died, or a kid died, or an elderly person died or something. They say, oh, that's on you. That's what the media will do. That's what the politicians do, right? They'll say, oh, that's on you, right? If anybody has any desire for risky excellence, which is the very foundation of our everyday life. Every day you get in a car, that's excellent. You're pursuing excellence, which is the best you can do in your job, and you got to get in a car. That's risky, right? Every day you make a leap of faith. You choose a house, or you pick a life partner for marriage or whatever. There's always a risk in the most excellent things that we pursue. But with government, they don't have to incur the risk, the responsibility of the results of their choices. So the number one thing they want to do is mitigate anything that risks their public perception. Anything that makes them look bad, they're going to avoid. Now imagine they're basically like PR agents, or Hollywood stars. They're all about image. Why do you want people who are focused on image managing crises? That doesn't, just think about that on the surface. People whose entire career is built around the idea of managing their image. Did I turn the economy on and did I get the blame for one person dying over here? That's all politics is. It's this worship of who's in power, and whoever they are, they're either a god or a demon, depending on your political tribalism. Meanwhile, nothing ever changes where it needs to change. In our homes, in our neighborhoods, we've still got to struggle. We've still got to fight. We don't get our handouts, and if we do, it's just little crumbs that doesn't have any value. We're the ones that make the thing go. It's the unsung heroes, the people that don't get the spotlight, the people who aren't shutting other people's churches down and things like that. people to go to work, pay their bills, take care of their family, and do the best they can to use their God-given talents to serve their neighbors in an excellent way. I know there's many of those folks listening right now. You're tired. You've got things that are under your responsibility, people under your care, and you're wondering, what are these clowns doing to ruin our whole lives because of this fear? And what is their fear? They fear the perception that if they allow us to have our God-given freedom that they can't touch. That's what the founding fathers knew. Your freedoms don't come from the Constitution. They are not created by the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution. They're created by your Creator. They're endowed to you. And that which government cannot create, they cannot destroy. That is what your founding documents say. The Declaration of Independence is in the U.S. Code. It's part of code. So it's part of law. And it says that your life, your liberty, your property, those are foundational to your humanity. They're not negotiable. That doesn't mean you abuse your freedom to be a fool. No, that has nothing to do with that. With liberty comes virtue. Liberty and virtue come together. But that means that we as a nation and we as a community right now have to realize that no one's going to save us. We've got to be nimble. We've got to get out of debt. We've got to stop overextending ourselves with credit and consumption. Live beneath our means so we don't have to live in a destitute situation. That means take care of our facts, learn the facts about nutrition so that we're not getting ourselves like sitting ducks for some kind of pandemic or something that comes along the way. As I mentioned on the show yesterday, look at the level of deaths and fatalities that happen every year for cancer and diabetes and heart disease and Alzheimer's and all these other things. Those are all laid at the feet of the false pseudoscience that makes up single-payer nutrition science from government. It tells us to eat massive amounts of grains and vegetable oils every day, which is processed junk. They're not telling us what to do with our health. They're still pushing us towards a cliff of health that makes us vulnerable when there's a pandemic or some new virus. It's the foundational health that they've set us on, that path of getting us eating 7 to 11 grains and all this stuff that makes us like sitting ducks whenever there's something that hurts our immune system. But don't listen to that. That's what's amazing about this moment. You're seeing the false gods, the false idols, crumble under the weight of their own lies. And above it all stands you and I and our God-given freedoms, willing to chart the future so that never again do our children and our children's children have to sweat the same level of petty tyranny that we have endured in our times. That they can live in a world free from chronic diseases, wiped out with solutions right under our noses. That's what it's about. That is the dream that you and I can build. And isn't that exciting? Because we have it in our fingertips right now to do it. So don't worry. Put your shoulders back, keep your head high, and realize that everything is right in our hands to achieve. We'll be right back for hour 2 of our live show with some special guests. You don't want to miss it. Hang on. We'll be right back. I'm David Gronowski.
of Jim Rome. Weekdays noon to 3. Sports Talk 1040 The Team. WHBO, Pinellas Park.
Hey, it's Bubba the Love Sponge. With all the coronavirus stuff going on, you've heard the CDC say wash your hands about 1 zillion times. You know, studies show that the average person touches their face 23 times an hour. Your nose, eyes, and mouth, that's called the T-zone. And the T-zone is the most important area to keep clean. And for over 12 years, there's this product called TheraWorks Protect. It's been used by millions of emergency room patients and medical clinics to support infection prevention. TheraWorks Protect is easy to use, and it's safe to apply several times a day on your hands and around your nose and eyes and mouth, better known again as the T-zone. Just apply a small amount into your hand and rub it in until it dries, and then apply another amount and rub it all over your T-zone. You know, finding hand sanitizer sometimes can be difficult, and now you can order TheraWorks Protect online. Just get it directly from them. Go to TZoneProtect.com and use the Bubba Kicker. When you use the Bubba / you're going to get 20% off and free freight, and you're going to have it in a few days. Again, TZoneProtect.com / Bubba. Start protecting yourself and the ones that you love now.
And now, Phoenix Pools is reminding motorists to slow down on our roadways, keep an eye out for kids at play, and never text and drive.
So for our live stream listeners, I want you to know we have
Amy
Pova of the Can Do Clemency Foundation, as well as Anrika Caldwell, both from the same group, who are going to be talking about the situation in the nation's prisons as it relates to nonviolent victimless offenders who are in prison right now, sitting in a very unsafe situation with a pandemic.
Mom always told us to eat our fruits and veggies. Well, there's no better way to keep Mom happy than to take Fortify Organic Blue-Green Superfood. Studies indicate people who consume the most fruits and veggies each day are the healthiest with the best improved immune system. This product was created and designed by board-certified Dr. Michael Lang. You know him from the program Ask the Doctor. During this viral pandemic crisis, Dr. Lang recommends eating 10 servings of organic fruits and veggies a day, but this may not be realistic. This product produced by Dr. Lang has developed one of the first all-organic, gluten-free, and FODMAP-free superfood. It's called Fortify Organic Blue-Green Superfood. It's simple to take. Drink 1 serving a day to get 12 different superfoods. It's compatible for people with IBS since it's FODMAP-free. Perfect for anyone who needs a fruit and vegetable boost. Right now, Fortify is offering 25% off this superfood product. Go to Fortify.com. That's Fortify.com. Use promo code RADIO and receive the 25% discount. Eat healthy. Be healthy. Fortify.com. Keeping America fit and healthy during this time of precautionary change.
This message is sponsored by the Florida A&M University Medical Marijuana Education and Research Initiative, the Florida Association of Broadcasters, and this radio station.
Where I'm from, marijuana is legal. Can I use it in Florida?
Nah, it's illegal here. 20 grams or less is a misdemeanor, and more than 20 grams is a felony.
Well, I have epilepsy. Should I try to get a medical marijuana prescription?
Now that's legal, but talk to your doctor first to see if it's a qualifying condition and if medical marijuana is even right for you.
I will, thanks.
My name is Roz. Most people know me as a spokesperson for 1-800-ASK-GARY. The driver made a left turn onto ongoing traffic, and I hit her. Once I got out of my vehicle and I was able to stand up, then I started feeling pain elsewhere. I had to think. Call 1-800-ASK-GARY. They were on the ball, helping me find legal and medical help. They have thousands of other people, but they make you feel like you're their top priority. I made the call. I now tell other people to make.
Non-attorney spokesperson.
If you're not facing your mortgage issues, this can be the most terrifying sound in the world. It means you've fallen behind. It means hope is dwindling. It means you're another call closer to losing your home to foreclosure. Fortunately, there's hope. If you need real help and guidance, call 1-888-995-HOPE. That's 1-888-995-4673. Because nothing is worse than doing nothing.
This foreclosure prevention message is brought to you by the CDC of Tampa, St. Petersburg Neighborhood Housing Services, NeighborWorks, and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Cheryl. Welcome to Fountain View Estates, one of Tampa's premier manufactured home retirement communities. We feature 2 resort-style swimming pools, large 16-person jacuzzi, pickleball courts, a ballroom, clubs, classes, and a dog park. You'll be just minutes away from the West Chase area, outstanding golf, great shopping, dining, arts, and entertainment. Fountain View Estates offers several new homes under $120,000 with large open floor plans, designer color schemes, fine wood cabinets, updated appliances, and modern flooring. With any new home purchase, you'll receive 6 months free lifestyle fees as well as 3.99% financing. Visit us at 8800 Berkshire Lane, just south of Linebaugh Avenue off Sheldon Road. Call 844-515-3903 or Google Fountain View Estates to book a tour online. Come discover what our residents already know. There's a fountain of youth at Fountain View Estates.
The following message is sponsored by the Florida Department of Elder Affairs, the Florida Association of Broadcasters, and this radio station.
As prescription costs rise, many Medicare beneficiaries are having difficulty keeping up. The Florida Department of Elder Affairs SHINE program may be able to help. SHINE counselors can guide you to money-saving programs, including one that may help pay your Medicare Part D costs. For more information, call 1-800-963-5337 or go to floridashine.org.
From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media. A Neighbor's Choice. Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornosky, your neighbor, here to cast out all that negativity, that fear, those blame games. They're going out the window right now, because this is a program dedicated to solving problems neighbor to neighbor. We're not going to rely on toxic groupthink. We're going to use our thinking caps. We're going to use our common sense. We're going to get things done. That's what our program's about, giving a voice to those who don't get a voice, those who don't make the headlines, but are the people that really matter, forgotten heroes of our country.
Hello.
And we have our guest with us, Enrica Caldwell. How you doing, Enrica?
Hi, how are you?
Great. You are with the Can Do Clemency Foundation, which is a group that's dedicated to the liberation of folks who are in prison right now for nonviolent, victimless choices that get caught up in the wrong crowd years ago when they were making younger, more youthful choices. And now they are languishing as we speak right now in prison, and it's time when we have a pandemic. What's your thoughts on this, Enrica?
I am truly fearful for everyone that is incarcerated right now, whether it's state or federal prisons. The same fear that I have outside that we're dealing with every day is the same fear, if not more of a fear, for the people that are inside. Definitely.
And you're someone who we've talked with you before, and you have loved ones in the prison system yourself. Tell me how that situation's going with those closer to home.
So, as you know, that I advocate for more than just my loved ones, but I guess I'll start with my own personal issues that I'm having with the virus and him being in prison. First off, he was commuted in 2017 by Obama, but unfortunately it was from a life sentence to 30 years. So essentially he has about 14 more years to serve. And for him, you know, he's dealt with that as best as he can. But at this point now, it's almost like a slap in the face for him because he was anticipating being home 3 years ago, and now he's still battling with an epidemic that can possibly lead to a death sentence. And he's basically said that.
So is his spirits, how's he taking this process right now?
The way he stated it was this has got him a little depressed now. Right. And I've never, ever heard him have pessimistic feelings. He was always very optimistic in regards to still fighting to come home. I mean, he's still fighting to come home, but to actually hear that anxiety and fear that is no longer about fighting to come home, but fighting to survive this pandemic because of the nature of the environment in the prison system where you cannot demonstrate social distance. You can't practice social distance in a prison. He's in a prison. I mean, I'm sorry. He's in a room because he's in a low. So it's kind of like more of an open air type of situation. He's in a room with 4 other cellmates, you know. He's locked on a unit with other more than enough people. And it's just virtually impossible to practice social distancing.
And do they have proper sanitation and, you know, sanitizing and soap and all that?
Well, let me just say this. He's been given the same product that they used prior to this happening to clean his cells, like some liquid type of detergent. There is no hand sanitizer. They initially were told that they would be given, or they were going to be able to buy hand sanitizer in commissary, but that never came. He literally just yesterday had to ask the guard why he had a mask on and none of the inmates did. And, you know, based on what was exchanged, he said after an hour or two they came around with masks. But prior to that, the correctional officers were wearing masks. However, the inmates weren't.
So your group can do clemency, and we're going to have your friend Amy Pova on in just a moment. But you guys advocate, and you're at the tip of the spear for a lot of the work that the White House and other folks have been doing about clemency for people who have had unjust prison sentences. And so I wanted to kind of narrow in with you the situation that's going on with women in prison. I mean, I tell people all the time, I find it immoral, the idea of separating a mother from their young baby, right? You just see how babies are, and they cry when their mommy leaves the room. And to take that away from that little human, that little sovereign baby made in the image of God, and to take their mommy away from them in critical age when they're young especially, I think is one of the most disgusting, inhumane things that people are going to look back pretty soon, hopefully, and say, oh my goodness, they were still doing that barbaric practice in 2020, locking women up away from their kids for decades for nonviolent, victimless choices.
Yeah. So, Amy, we often structure how we communicate with our loved ones, our angels, as we call them. She typically communicates with both men and women. I typically communicate with the men. I could say, and I'm sure Amy, when she comes on, she'll be able to speak more towards what she has heard from the women. The few things that I do know is that women are very afraid. I know that I just read an email from a lady in Dublin today that the BOP, as far as the bar memo is concerned, to start, you know, releasing those who are nonviolent to some who are, you know, close to time or what have you, and according to the guidelines of the bar memo, to start releasing them to home confinement. And I read the email today, and I was really like aghast to read where the warden has told them that this doesn't apply to them. So they're really afraid, you know. They're saying, help me, you know, can we get someone to do an executive order? Because wardens are telling them that this doesn't exist, this memo, we don't know anything about it, and they're being placed in compromised positions in the midst of trying to get home. So I do speak with men, and I've spoke to a lot of wives and mothers of particularly a federal institution, FCI Elkton, that has been in the news due to the ravage of COVID cases. And so it's really heartbreaking when you hear a wife call to say that she doesn't know where her husband is because someone on the inside called her to let her know that her husband has been ill for 5 days, gravely ill, and they have come and taken him and packed up his things, and he could be anywhere in the institution. She said that they had told her he could be in the gym, he could be in a chapel, or he could be in a visiting room. And the institution hasn't even contacted her to even let her know that something has happened to her husband. So those are some of the phone calls that I get, and I'm constantly scrambling with Amy trying to find someone to listen to the story so that it can get out to the media that these men are fighting for their lives right now.
We're speaking with Anrika Caldwell. She's with CanDoClemency.com. Maybe you have a loved one who's in a prison or a jail right now for a victimless crime, petty crime, not harming the public, and you're thinking about this. You can call in at 727-587-1040. That's 727-587-1040. Back with more from the Can Do Clemency Group. Amy Pova will join us in just a moment to learn what women are going through as they find themselves locked up in the middle of one of the worst pandemics in world history. Let's continue in just a moment.
Guys, the physicians and staff at Center for Men's Health want you to know that C4MH.com is open and will remain open throughout this whole ordeal.
We're on the front line.
So we're on a break right now. For our live stream listeners, make sure you hit that subscribe subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Facebook, follow, whatever. I don't really do that whole spiel very well. I'm focused on building our own brand, not touting YouTube's bell icon and all that stuff. But nevertheless, if you're watching on our online stream, make sure you are subscribed so you can get every episode. You are listening to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Garnosky. We're live across Central Florida, from Tampa Bay to the Space Coast, Orlando, 5:40 a.m. Orlando, 10:40 a.m. Tampa, 93.1 Orlando, 94.1 Sanford. We are joining you live. And we're talking about something that's very close to my heart, which is human liberty, and how it's immoral to use prison cages on victimless, nonviolent choices. The idea of putting human beings in a cage is, in my opinion, a very brutish and barbaric act to do for victimless choices. But it's particularly inhumane when there's a pandemic that we're still trying to get our hands around in terms of understanding. And putting people in situations like cages where they can't social distance. And my understanding from prisoners that have called into the program, the hygiene and the sanitary conditions are less than ideal for oftentimes folks in those situations. And yet they're in those situations with a deadly virus spreading, and poor hygiene and poor lack of sunshine, which are critical. Poor food, poor sunshine exposure, poor exercise exposure, and poor social distancing. That's not a recipe for any decent society to keep for prisoners or anyone. I'm here with Enrica Caldwell of the Can Do Clemency Foundation. Enrica, how you doing? Do we have Enrica?
I'm on the line.
There you are. And Amy, do we have Amy Pova?
Yes, I'm on. Mm-hmm.
Amy,
Hi,
it's
David.
great to hear from you, and I wish it could be in a better circumstance like the pandemic that we're in now, but nevertheless, here we are, and I've been seeing your work and other folks making the call that's very clear, and Enrica was talking about her experiences working with prisoners and unjust situations for victimless crimes during this pandemic, and you have been focused on a lot of the women that are in these situations. Tell us a little bit about what you're hearing on the ground. What's going on? Paint us the picture for the audience that needs to know what's happening inside these prisons.
Right. Well, we have a large bandwidth inside the Bureau of Prisons through CoreLinks, which is the email system for prisoners. And after the first bar memo that was on March 26th, we try to do as much one-on-one communications with people inside to keep them informed and let them know, because quite often the Bureau of Prison staff, including case managers and counselors and stuff, they're a lot of the time behind the curve. They haven't heard of the latest news update, or they just don't make that information very readily available to the people inside. So I started asking on March 26th, what are you hearing? Have you heard about the bar memo? What's going on there? And repeatedly, I was hearing the same thing, which was odd to me, that they had gone to staff and asked about the bar memo, and most were being told that the staff didn't know anything about it, that they were not intending on releasing anybody. One warden even went so far as to say that they were safer in prison, and which we all know is ridiculous, and that it wouldn't matter anyway, because contracts would have to be renegotiated with the halfway houses. There's not enough probation officers to handle a large number of people being released. So they were literally disregarding Barr's memo. And then Barr released a second memo on April 3rd, and that seemed to do the trick. I don't know if they were just trying to work out the kinks. Maybe the Bureau of Prisons in D.C. was trying to figure out the logistics. But it ate up a lot of very important time, because every single day that nothing is happening inside the prison to identify candidates that meet the high-risk criteria is a day closer to the point of no return, where society as a whole will be under such panic that they probably won't want people released if indeed the virus goes, like some people have likened it to a fire in a dry barn. And I can promise you, as somebody who was in for 9 years, when the flu would come around, there was hardly anybody who did not catch it. And I think the coronavirus is much more contagious than the regular flu that we're all familiar with. We all got the flu because we're all crammed in like sardines, living on top of one another, almost like animals. And we can't practice social distancing or any of the measures that the general public are practicing and told to do.
Well, Amy Pova, what does the Barr memo, the second memo, say? What are the criteria for getting release, or what does it say?
Well, it's actually somewhat vague, but it's asking them to identify high-risk individuals. And I think with an understanding or an emphasis on the elderly, which is an obvious choice due to the mortality rate of people who contract the coronavirus that are over, 60. But we've seen a lot of very young people suffer the same consequences. So I think there's really not enough information to make those judgments. But he put it into an emergency status and emphasized that the institutions, Oakdale, Elkton, Danbury, and a couple of others should be given top priority, which we liked seeing, but we're still hearing some prisons are moving on it. We know that 20 women from Pekin were identified to be released, some from Jessup. And just recently, I was communicating with some ladies in Coleman, and I told them that some of the other prisons had already made a list, and I was hearing back that they're not doing anything here. And I said, well, then go to your case manager and make her aware. Go ahead and tell her that you've heard that Pekin has a list of women, and make her aware of your health issues. The person I was talking to happened to have asthma, and I said, don't wait for the list to come out, because I don't think they're under pressure. There's a lot of files to go through, and you could fall through the cracks. So she did, and within, I think the next day, which was yesterday, I heard that when she went and talked with her case manager, she did acknowledge that they were going to be looking for people, that they were in the process of doing that. And so yesterday I got word that 2 of them from Coleman were on the list that are people that are on our website that we advocate for. So I think they still have to pass more criteria, as in their home confinement plans. They want everybody to have a place to release to. I know that they're not putting people on public transit. They want people who have a family member who can come pick them up, or somebody who can come pick them up. So that's a little bit of a challenge, since some people I was in prison in California, and my parents were in Arkansas. That's a 3-day trip. Mm-hmm. So, but anyone who has health issues, I just got word that a woman who was convicted of a violent crime and was serving life has been identified to be on this list. I was very glad to hear that, because in other institutions were saying they wanted people to be a minimum security level, which is the lowest level you can be, although they were maybe taking some other factors in. But this one particular woman who is going to release is 65 years old and has some health conditions. So I was really relieved to hear that, because I know this particular lady, and she is not somebody that the public has to be concerned about. I don't want people overreacting or having a knee-jerk reaction when they hear the word violent, because conspiracy often convicts you for the actions of other people, and you're branded with the scarlet letter for the rest of your life due to the charges. And she is not anybody that anyone needs to be concerned about.
Well, that's very interesting. Are these home confinement situations, are those temporary? They're going to go back to prison afterwards, or how does that work?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I would imagine that in some situations that could possibly be part of the plan. We're strongly encouraging people to file compassionate releases, and some of the people that we work with have compassionate releases in because they may not be identified as a high-risk candidate. And there's a lot of movement going on right now where judges are going ahead and granting these compassionate releases. So that's a factor. And even if people are on a list and go to home confinement, what could happen after they're home is that their judge could go ahead and grant the compassionate release, and then they won't have to return from prison. So we really think it's like a two-prong, not just two-prong, but a three-prong effort. Many of the people, we have their clemency petitions already submitted, their candidates that have been pending for a while. So we're hoping President Trump will move and grant some more clemencies. But in the interim, you have to cover all bases. So we also encourage people to file compassionate release and to get on these lists that the Bureau of Prison staff are working to identify the at-risk people. So it's all hands on deck right now. I don't care what gets you home, but by any means possible, that's what people should be pursuing.
We're speaking with Amy Pova and Enrica Caldwell of CanDoClemency.com about their work on the front lines of rescuing captives in perilous situations as this pandemic continues to roll across the country. We're going to continue to find out more about what we can do to get nonviolent, victimless folks and others home safe with their families so that they're not sitting like sitting ducks for a lethal disease. We'll continue in just a moment on A Neighbor's Choice. Don't go anywhere.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. Ouch! Well, by wearing a small remote device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers. Here's what our customers had to say.
Painless. No more pricking my finger.
No finger pricks.
Convenience. They delivered it free, and they took care of all the paperwork.
If you're testing your blood sugar 4 or more times per day, injecting insulin 3 or more times per day, or using an insulin pump, a CGM can help you. It's accurate, easy to use, and if you have Medicare, you can get a new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. Plus, get free shipping of your new CGM, and we can bill Medicare for you.
Honestly, I had my doubts, but that new CGM is painless.
Call now, 800-808-5181, 800-808-5181, 800-808-5181. That's 800-808-5181.
Windshields are all about safety, and so is Auto Glass America. If your windshield is damaged and you have comprehensive insurance, we'll install a premium quality replacement with a lifetime warranty at no cost to you. We'll buy back your damaged windshield for up to $100 cash on the spot and come to you with free mobile service. Keep your family safe. Call us today. Remember, if it's chipped or cracked, we'll buy it back. 813-96-GLASS. That's 813-96-GLASS.
Auto Glass America.
Sometimes a family needs a little help to deal with life stresses. You can contribute to happy, healthy childhoods with a few simple steps. Notice families under stress. Offer a helping hand. Give your time. Talk about healthy child development. Connect a family with resources. Contributing to a great childhood can be as easy as being a good neighbor. For more, preventchildabusefl.org. This message is sponsored by the Ounce of Prevention Fund of Florida, the Florida Association of Broadcasters, and this radio station.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornosky, and we're talking about the important issue that doesn't get enough coverage because it's an easy solution if we just roll up our sleeves and have some confidence in ourselves to be humane and be decent. You know, we're always taught that do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I don't think any one of us would want to have our mother, or our brother, or our child in a cage when there's a pandemic, especially that we don't know the cure for, we don't know how infectious it is, we don't know if it reinfects people who get it, we don't know any of that stuff, and yet people are packed in like animals for nonviolent, petty things most of the time, or minor issues in their past. They get wrapped up in conspiracy charges that, you know, because of the way the law works, they didn't actually do anything violent themselves, but they get all the things that other people in their cohort did put on their neck. And I'm here with people who are leading the charge to get this problem solved. That is the Can Do Clemency Foundation. CanDoClemency.com is their website. Enrica Caldwell and Amy Pova are leading the fight. Enrica, what are you seeing in the men's prison? Are you hearing similar situations as Amy as it pertains to the women's situation?
Oh, yeah. I know where my loved one is. They didn't even, when I say they, the warden didn't even post a memo on the bulletin, the computers for them. It was more or less a word of mouth type of situation. Then he had explained to me that people, of course, have gone to their counselors to try to seek relief, and the counselors are just kind of like shooing them away and, you know, telling them anything. So there's really no movement at the facility that he's at in regards to identifying inmates for home confinement.
Are there certain prisons that you guys are aware of that are, I mean, we don't have to name them by name, but are there some prisons that are in much worse shape in terms of, you know, cleanliness and sanitation that are hot spots?
Absolutely. There are some facilities, depending on, I'm assuming, who operates them have more of a structured environment as opposed to other facilities. So there's not one facility that operates the same.
Amy, are you hearing from the women that you are interacting with across the country who are incarcerated? Are you hearing any women say they have COVID-19 or symptoms of it, or folks around them that have it?
Yes, just heard yesterday about one person that is believed to have it at Carswell, which is where the medical facility is, and very scary situation because there was a pregnant woman there who they took out to the hospital to give birth early, and I think they just wanted to get her maybe out of there because they don't know whether it's already spread. But when somebody has become symptomatic, then of course by that time you have to assume that the virus is already spread to other people who are not yet symptomatic. So it's very scary. I don't think there should be a pregnant woman in prison right now. If there's not a better explanation or reason to release somebody, my God, you're going to bring an innocent child into this world that the mother is locked up and being potentially exposed. and not able to engage in all the measures that we're all being told. So it's a very disturbing time, and like Enrica just said, it varies drastically depending on the institution, whether or not they're even acknowledging the Barr memo. That's what's disturbing to me, is that if it weren't for some of us advocacy organizations educating the people in prison, to me it would be very scary to have to rely on the Bureau of Prisons to keep you informed, and I think that's their job. That's what they're being paid to do.
What irritates me, when I think about pregnant women being in a cage when there's a deadly virus, oftentimes for nonviolent things, say it's a drug charge, and of course there's some in the media that really love to demonize people. Oh, they did it, they have to do the time and all this. And I think to myself, I have veterans. We're all over Tampa Bay right now on radio and live stream, and we're in Orlando. We've got a lot of veterans that listen to the program. We've got MacDill Air Force Base, Major Air Force Base, Central Command, for Middle East operations and so on. And when I think about, what the veterans have told me, where they are sent into Afghanistan to guard the warlords selling opium to protect their interests in inter-Afghani warfare and civil war. And I think, my goodness, we're sending our young men and women to put their life on the line to keep certain warlords happy with their opium trade so that we can do what? Build a road or make some money for some contractor. Meanwhile, the young woman gets involved with drugs in some tangential way, and she's sitting in a cage like an animal with a deadly virus and no way to escape. What does that look to you?
Well, not only that, but think about it. We're somehow helping facilitate the drug trade, and I've heard that, and I think even Vice did a big special where the military literally seized these poppy fields, and there's nothing being done, and we have helped finance the what is it when they put in the watering system and stuff like that?
Yeah, the irrigation.
Irrigation. Yeah, the irrigation, right, exactly. And so then the drugs come to this country, and our loved ones go to prison.
Right.
And I don't want to get. It's absolutely chilling, bone chilling, to think that any part of our government is helping facilitate the arrest and incarceration of American citizens.
Yeah, and then you think about the Fast and Furious scandal, where we found out our own federal government was shipping violent weapons to drug cartels in Mexico. So they're giving weapons to violent leaders of drug cartels in Mexico and then putting our families, Americans, in cages and then not doing anything to lift a finger fast enough when there's a raging virus that could hurt people who don't have adequate health care inside those prisons. Truly, truly a disgrace to anybody who is paying attention. Enrica, what can people do who are in similar situations like you, who have a loved one right now in this situation? Maybe it's state or federal. Maybe you've got some advice or some recommendations for them.
So as in communication with mothers and wives, I have shared with them to possibly have their loved one go to the counselor and initiate a release, home confinement release, along with a comprehensive home plan. If the counselor does not respond, to possibly email the warden or executive director, and or write a certified letter to the warden along with supplemental letters from family, friends, pastors to support their loved ones' endeavors to come home based on the home confinement. Because what I'm hearing, again, as Amy had emphasized, that these institutions are not sharing the information that is coming from Attorney General Barr. I have been told that even when some of the inmates have gone to counselors or correctional officers, they've basically told them it's not happening. Yet they clearly qualify. I have one young man who is due to come home in September, and yet he's just a sitting duck, so to speak, in the institution. And the mother is very afraid of the fact that before September, her son will not be here due to the virus.
Well, I appreciate what you guys have said. It's grim news, but it's motivating news because it's time for America to just say no to this barbaric practice. Thank you, Enrica and Amy, for what you're doing. We're going to stay in touch with you and do whatever we can to shine a spotlight on this issue. It's critical that we get this right. Thanks again for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
And go to CanDoClemency.com, CanDoClemency.com. Look at what they're doing. Support them. Raise attention. Call your representative. Let's not make this worse than it has to be. Let's do the right thing. Let's dig deep into our humanity and set the captives free. I'm David Garnosky. More to come in just a moment.
Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Lang, board-certified optometric physician and certified nutritional specialist, host of popular talk show Ask the Doctor. I've researched and developed an amazing new omega-3 product that you'll see incredible results with. It's called Fortify Super Omega-3 Max. I had one of the top Norwegian omega-3 research teams in conjunction with myself and Fortify Vitamins aid in the development of this advanced omega-3. This product is the most potent and purest triglyceride form omega-3 in the United States today. Omega-3 is great for all aspects of your health and well-being, especially in this unprecedented, challenging time. I am giving a 25% discount with promo code RADIO during this viral pandemic. Go to my website, fortify.com. That's FORTIFEYE. Remember the EYE in Fortify. That's fortify.com. Enter the promo code RADIO to receive the 25% discount.
And now, One Stop Auto Sales is reminding Americans to stand tall and show support to the brave and honorable men and women who serve in our U.S. military. This salute is brought to you by One Stop Auto Sales, veteran-owned and operated, serving the area with quality, integrity, and pride. Don't delay. Call the pros today at 813-246-5556. That's 813-246-5556. Or stop by their new location at 2312 East College Avenue in Ruskin. That's One Stop Auto Sales, proudly saluting our troops and veterans.
Dr. Jim DiRespino from Center for Men's Health today in Frank's garage. Doc, I was talking to a buddy of mine, telling him about my spring break plans, and he's like, where do you get the energy to do all this stuff? I said, testosterone replacement from C4MH.com. And then he asked me what testosterone has to do with energy.
Most people are aware of the effects of testosterone has on strength and sex drive, but for 99% of our patients, energy is the main focus.
I became a patient because I didn't want to lose muscle mass.
And there is hard data that testosterone improves mood, concentration, and memory.
So Center for Men's Health isn't just treating testosterone deficiency, it's treating the quality of your life.
Let me make this simple. Your body is a machine, and that machine was designed to run with a perfect testosterone level. But if you want to see how good your machine can perform, go to C4MH.com and spend the $45. You'll get over $400 of lab tests and a 30-minute physician consultation.
It's fast, easy, and convenient with locations all up and down the West Florida coast. Go to C4MH.com.
The following message is sponsored by the Florida Department of Elder Affairs, the Florida Association of Broadcasters, and this radio station.
Sarah is 64 and loves to garden. Recently, her health insurance ran out, leaving her worried about more than just weeds. She called the Elder Helpline and spoke with a volunteer Shine counselor about her options. There, she received free, unbiased counseling on health insurance for those on Medicare. For more information or to volunteer, call 1-800-963-5337 or go to floridashine.org.
Hello, Tampa Bay. Hello, Orlando. Hope you're having a good day. Hope your spirits are high. Shoulders are back. Just put them back. It always feels great to stand up straight with your shoulders back. That posture is the posture of success, the posture of confidence. They say 50% or more of communication is nonverbal. And that posture you do, the way you hold yourself, the way you keep your head high, that informs your whole body. It informs your full holistic system in a time when constant voices are saying, be fearful, submit. These terrible words, they've always been doing this. Look, they've been doing it since the days of the pharaohs and before then. Some little wannabe God always telling us to, oh, watch out. I heard lightning. You need me to be your God. I'll protect you from the thunderstorm. We've heard that a million times. It's fake news. We call that mythology when you study it in school, right? But now we know it's fake news, the same thing. Fake news is not a partisan thing. It's a thing that infects us from both sides of the political aisle, unfortunately. Look at what they did to Congressman Thomas Massie, who voted and said, hey, I just want you guys to be accountable for what you're going to vote for. $2.5 trillion handout to all these special interests and a few crumbs to us. I want you guys to go on record, put your names down for this stuff if you're going to go and create the largest handout in American history. And you saw how John Kerry and President Trump circled the wagons. They united and tried to excoriate that representative for just following his oath. He apparently is one of those old-fashioned guys that says, hey, I swear to take an oath to the Constitution that I'm going to defend it and uphold it at all times. So he read the rules, and he's trying to keep these lawless little weirdos in D.C. to follow the rules too, and they want to destroy him for it. So we know that fake news can come from both sides. And we know that wannabe gods have always wanted to rule us when times are tough or strange or different. But nevertheless, freedom wins in the end. Nevertheless, those who pursue virtue and self-empowerment, we're the ones that will inherit the earth. Not through force, but through meekness, through forbearance, through goodness, through keeping a mindset of joy, loving our neighbor, not through the barrel of a gun. That's the way of the old order. The old order from all the little squawk box on television and so forth, that hive mind media, their weapons are that of coercion. Our weapons are that of love and goodness, mercy and gentleness, meekness. And against such thing, there is no condemnation. There is no ability to lose with those things emanating from our lives as we seek to be the role models that we want in our lives. We can't look to any heroes to save us. But what we can do is get to work serving those around us. I want to let you know, if you are listening right now and you know there's a lot of people hurting in the community, maybe you know someone that needs groceries, maybe you know someone that's in a really destitute situation, health-wise or financially, you can call us, 727-587-1040. Tell us a story. We will use this platform as a vehicle to get the word out about people who need something, whatever it is. That's what Neighbors Come Together. That's what this spontaneous coming together is all about. People used to sit around the radio in the living room and hear stories and hear bulletins about what was going on in the world, and they still do. But now you get to be a part of it in a more interactive way through spreading this message on social media, through getting the word out. If you know an elderly person who's in a bad situation, they can't get food, they can't get medication, they can't afford it, or they're out of work and they're in a really tight spot and they don't just want to surrender to darkness, they want to pull themselves up. Maybe you have a story you'd want to share that we can shine a spotlight through our media platform. You could call us at 727-587-1040. You don't have to talk about it on air. Just tell us off air, and we'll look into it and see what we can do. This is a community radio program. Just because we believe in personhood doesn't mean we are islands unto ourselves. We believe that community is really based on sovereign persons taking responsibility for their neighbor's situation. Again, through their own choice, their own risky excellence that they choose to imbue. That's what the Good Samaritan did. When the Good Samaritan looked across and saw the man suffering, beaten to a bloody mess in the wilderness, he didn't think about the risk to him. Well, how will this make me look? I'm helping someone who has a different religion than me, who hates me, who's been trained from day one to see me as scum. And that Samaritan didn't think that, or at least he didn't let that thought stay in his mind and his body. And he didn't think about, well, what's going to happen to me? What if this guy's sick? Or what if this guy is bait for some kind of hidden robbers that are going to come out and grab me and beat me up too? He didn't think of anything about himself. And you know what else he didn't need? He didn't need a bureaucrat from Caesar coming and telling him, you must help your neighbor or else, like government wannabe gods do at our time. No. What made his choice so beautiful is that he took action. He took the initiative. He didn't wait. He didn't ponder all the different little factors of mitigating his risk. He did the opposite. He engaged in what I call risky excellence. And he went to his neighbor. He went to someone who is considered his foe, his enemy. So if you're a diehard Republican, he went to a radical Democrat socialist. And if you're a progressive leftist, he went to the most right-wing nationalist that you so are taught to detest. And he said, I'm going to help him. Doesn't matter what the cost is to me. I'm going to help him. I don't need to wait for a commissar to give me authority. I'm going to help this person, tend to his wounds, get him a hotel, get him on his own feet, pay for the tab, and beyond. That's what the Good Samaritan did. That's not something you can replicate with a bureaucratic decree. That's not something you can make happen through a new law or a new round of stimulus from on high. It happens each and every day and every moment and every choice that presents itself to us. It's fully in your hands. You have that power. You have that sovereignty to make the choice. And there are so many opportunities to do it beautifully each moment we have. We're only here for just a few decades, We get, if we're lucky, 80, 90 years, maybe 100 if you eat your ribeyes every day. Use that time on this earth wisely. Don't be reactive. Don't be passive and waiting for dictation. You get out there and be excellent, even if it's risky. Be beautiful. Give people dignity. Give people some joy. Give people some knowledge, some education. Give people a smile and a laugh. They could use it. That's what's important. Serving your neighbor. What a novel concept. Did you ever hear a newsman tell you that? Don't worry about the nightly news. You won't hear that there. God bless them. They're doing the best they can. They know not what they do. But you and I, together, one day at a time, are going to create the environment that we desire. We desire mercy, not sacrifice. Godspeed.